Welcome to my channel. My name is Ria and today we are going to talk about the full moon lunar eclipse happening on 5th of May 2023. So for this video we are going to talk primarily about Western astrology, and then towards the end of the video I will focus on Vedic astrology. So let's get started. Now, a full moon is when the sun and the moon are in opposition, right? The moon here and the sun here. This is a full moon. Now, this one is an eclipse. It's in the sign of Scorpio. This is Scorpio. And full moons generally represent a point of completion, a point of release, a point where something closes out, a point where something culminates. It's also a point of endings, of a lot of emotional release. The moon, which represents our emotions, and the sun, which represents our soul, are opposing each other, facing each other at this point, right? So in many ways, this can be a very emotionally charged point, as well as any full moon is, right? Emotionally charged points. Now this one's an eclipse. It's an eclipse and it's sitting next to the south node. This is the south node. Now this is also known as Ketu, right? So this one is an eclipse. Eclipses are karmic events, they're fated events. It feels like destiny is at play during eclipse time, right? We had an eclipse on 20th April about 2 weeks ago, and that was in the sign of Aries, right? So since then, we've been in this eclipse energy, karmic times, destined times, fated times. Now, this one is also an eclipse, so this one is also karmic, this one is also fated, this one also has this feeling of something being destined. Right now, in the sign of Scorpio, the moon is in Scorpio, right? In the sign of Scorpio, Scorpio themes are highlighted. Scorpio is the sign that is all about rebirth, right? It's transformation, it's change, it's rebirth, it's changing something in a drastic way that it's almost brand new, right? It's the sign of going to the bottom of things. It's the sign of digging really deep. It's the sign where everything that's hidden, where everything that's under the surface starts coming up, starts coming to light, right? So major Scorpio themes will be highlighted. Those themes are endings, beginnings, transformation, uncovering things, going really deep into something, rebirth, regeneration, all these themes. So those are the big themes associated with this eclipse. Now, the last new moon solar eclipse which happened on 20th April also had similar themes, right? It had these big themes of endings and beginnings and changes and transformations and things changing in a big way because it was in a square 90-degree angle to Pluto. And this one has the same themes as well because it is in the sign of Scorpio. Now, what that means in a nutshell is that we are in changing times. Things are changing, things are ending, things are beginning, especially if we look at the fact that Pluto here is at 0 degrees of Aquarius, a new sign after 15 years of Capricorn, right? Almost 15 years. Although it will go back into Capricorn, new themes are still emerging. Saturn here is also in the early degrees of Pisces. It changed signs in March. So since March, there has been a theme shift, right? And with these two eclipses, the theme of themes shifting is very prominent, right? So now let's talk about the aspects that are going on because the aspects will color the energy of this eclipse. Now, the first and the most important thing I want to talk about is the fact that this is in opposition to Uranus. This is Uranus, right? It's at 18 degrees and the moon's right there, the sun's right there. Now, Uranus is the planet of change, sudden change, unexpected things just happening in an instant, right? It's this very unpredictable energy. So there's an element of that with this eclipse. Things can be unpredictable, things can be unexpected, things can happen out of the blue, right? So it's a very unpredictable energy. It's very difficult to predict what Uranus will bring. But one thing we know is that it's unexpected, it's uncertain, it's unpredictable. So yes, there's a lot about release, endings, change, rebirth, all that stuff. But this can be quite sudden, this can be quite unexpected, this can be quite out of the blue, right? So that's the primary thing. Now, another thing with Uranus we need to watch out for is the fact that Uranus is a lot of energy, right? It's like a lot of energy and then nothing, a lot and then nothing. So I'll just mention a few things we need to watch out for, right? Uranus, because it's so much energy, it can lead to feeling maybe a little overwhelmed. It can lead to feeling maybe a little anxious, maybe a little wired, right? So just be mindful of those things. It's a good time to maybe relax, maybe take a deep breath if you're feeling these things, and realize that it's the energy. If that's happening, it's not necessary, right? It's not necessary. So that's the most important aspect this moon is making. Now, the next thing I want to touch upon is the fact, okay, before we move on, what I want to talk about is Uranus. Now, if you see, Uranus is at 18 degrees. Right now, 18 degrees is an important spot because this is where Rahu, the North Node, and Uranus met up July 31st into August 1st, 2022. So a few months ago. And that's also an energy that signifies change, right? So that's what we went through July 31st, August 1st last year. And now Uranus is at that spot almost. I believe it's at 1841 right now. That's at 1842, if I'm not mistaken. 18 degree point, right? So maybe there's some stuff coming up from August. Maybe think of what you started then. Maybe think of the changes that started to take place around August of last year. That's something I wanted to mention. Now, the next thing I want to talk about is the fact that we have Pluto here. This is Pluto at 0 degrees in a square to Ketu and Rahu, in a square to the nodes. Right, 90-degree angle, and it has been in this aspect for some time. This will come exact about July of this year, so it's a build up right now, and this is a karmic configuration, you can say. The nodes are very karmic points. They are the most karmic points in a chart, and in an aspect with Pluto is more highlighted, right? So a lot about endings, beginnings, changes, transformation, all these things. It has been highlighted for a while, and it is going to keep building up till July at least. So that's what I wanted to mention with Pluto. And Pluto was in a square to the last eclipse, right? So that theme of change and endings is extremely highlighted at this time. Now, while Pluto is squaring the nodes, Saturn here is sextiling them, right? Sextiling the North Node and trining the South Node. And Saturn is the planet of patience, of discipline, of dedication, persistence, commitment, seriousness. Saturn is a very serious planet, right? It does things very seriously. It wants to do things in a way that's systematic, that's structured. And in a positive aspect with the nodes, right, we must embrace Saturn. Whatever it is that we're ending, whatever it is that we're transforming, beginning, we must have some structure to that. We must have some discipline and dedication and persistence, right? Because Saturn is there supporting us in these things. So I just thought I'd mention that as well. Now, a few other things I want to touch upon. The next thing is that we have Mercury here. It's sitting right next to the Sun, right? And it is in red font, right? Means it is retrograde. And it has been retrograde for a few days now, and it will be retrograde until mid-May. It will go direct by the time we talk about the next new moon. So I just thought I'll cover it in this video. Now, Mercury retrogrades are a time of review, right? They're a time of reflection. They're a time of going back to something that's already happened and trying to figure it out again, right? Is there a better way? Is there a better way of doing this, right? So we are in a period where we can feel maybe things are a bit slow. We can feel that because Mercury is a personal planet, right? And what we need to focus on is, okay, what did I do recently? What have I done in the past that needs my attention again, right? And we must review and reflect and maybe make appropriate changes. It's also a time where communication can feel slow. If you're expecting that email, if you're waiting for a phone call, maybe it feels like it's not coming through because Mercury is retrograde at this point. Mercury retrograde can also mean electronics and gadgets can malfunction a little bit. So I just thought I'd mention that. And it will go direct, I believe, by 14th, 15th May. So pretty soon. And yeah, that's Mercury. Now, the next thing I want to touch upon is the fact that Pluto is also retrograde now, red font. On 20th April, when we spoke about the new moon solar eclipse, it was direct. When we are talking about it now, it has gone retrograde. It went retrograde May 1st, right? Pluto is the planet of doing a lot of inner work, right? It's the planet of doing a lot of inner work in a way that we start to release and let go of things. So now it's retrograde. Now maybe we need to do a little review of the things that we've already worked on, that we need to do, that we need to let go of, that we need to maybe, work on internally. So Pluto is retrograde at this time. Now, the next thing I want to touch upon is the fact that Venus here is making a few aspects. Venus is the planet of relationships, beauty, finances, right? And it is squaring Neptune. 90-degree angle, which represents friction, which represents a challenge in astrology. And Neptune is an energy that can feel confusing. It can feel like I can't see things straight, right? It's so confusing. So maybe we might feel a little confused even at this point when it comes to maybe relationships or finances or the projects that we have. Venus is also the planet of self-worth, so maybe we feel a little confused about that, and that's okay because it will pass. Venus will move on and that confusion will diminish. Clarity will come. While it is squaring Neptune, though, it is sextiling Jupiter, positive angle with Jupiter. So some silver lining here, something positive with relationships, with finance, something positive, maybe an underlying positive feeling, although it can feel confusing. It can feel a little, I don't know where this is going. It can feel a little uncertain. It is relationships, projects, finances, self-worth, values, all those sort of things, all the Venus related things. So I just thought I'd mention that. So I think we've covered up a fair bit, but one or two more things I want to talk about is that between this moon and the next one, right, we have a few other things happening. Jupiter here will enter the sign of Taurus. It's changing signs, right? And this is going to happen on May 16th. And as it enters the sign of Taurus, it is going to square Pluto. Jupiter square Pluto, right? Jupiter is a magnifier. It's, yes, the planet of blessings. It's the planet of gifts and rewards, but it's a magnifier. It's also a teacher. And now it's changing signs, right? And Jupiter is entering the sign of Taurus after 12 years. And usually when it enters a sign, that sign goes through a positive experience, you can say, right? Because Jupiter can bring gifts, can bring blessings, can bring lessons, can bring all these things. So if you have a lot of Taurus in your chart, right? If you have a lot of Taurus, then Jupiter is entering your sign now after 12 years. So you can think about what went on 12 years ago, and maybe some themes, not all the themes, some themes might come back, right? Jupiter in general, when it enters a sign, it gives blessings, gifts, rewards, healing, positivity, but it also brings lessons. So that was Jupiter entering the sign of Taurus. It will square Pluto as it enters the sign of Taurus. Right now, that's a lot of energy. Jupiter is a magnifier. It's making a challenging aspect with the planet of change and transformation, right? So maybe this can feel like a lot of pressure, a lot of energy that's saying change, that's saying end, that's saying begin, that's saying let go, that's saying restart, renew, regenerate, right? All these things. So now let's talk about Vedic astrology. Now in Vedic, the energies are a little bit behind, 23 degrees approx, right? Again, depending on which system you use. And in Vedic, this eclipse falls in the sign of Libra, right? Now in Vedic, what I like to look at more than the sign is the nakshatra. Nakshatras are smaller divisions of a sign, right? Each spanning about 13.2 degrees. And they have their own meaning, their own ruler, their own interpretation. It's like a sign, but much smaller, 13.2 degrees, if you use the equal nakshatra system, right? And this one is falling in the nakshatra of Vishakha, and we've spoken about the nakshatra of Vishakha earlier on. This is a nakshatra that is ruled by Jupiter. This is a nakshatra that signifies two split paths, right? Two branches that split. So in many ways it signifies this splitting, right? This way or that way. What's it going to be? The old or the new, right? It's this splitting. So that gives away a lot about choosing that path, right? And very similar to Western in the way that we are ending, we are beginning, and when we end, we begin. What do? Right? We let go of one way and we move on to another one, right? This old way, okay, I can't be on this path anymore, I'll go here. So very similar to that feeling where again we're at that point of this way or that way. What's ending, what's beginning, right? What do you need to tone down? What do you need to dial up? A lot about that. This nakshatra is very goal oriented, right? This nakshatra can be very focused on one goal. So a lot like this energy when a Scorpio wants something, right? When a Scorpio wants something, they will get it, right? They will focus all their energies on that one thing to get it. So very similar to that, very similar in the sense that if it wants something, if it sees something, it will go and get it. So that energy of being very focused, being very goal oriented, being very, I want this, I'll get this, and being, so that's very highlighted with this nakshatra. And I think that's a lot like Aries also, right? Because the new moon solar eclipse we had was in the sign of Aries. We've had a lot of Aries recently. We still have Chiron there. Jupiter is still there. Although slowly we'll have a lot of Taurus now, right? But we've had a lot of Aries, right? And Aries is what? I want this, I will get it. It's about taking action. It's about moving forward. And this nakshatra in Vedic astrology is a lot, I don't want to say like Aries, but it has a similar vibe in the sense of I want this, I'm going to focus my energies on it and I'm going to work on it and I'm going to get it, right? So very similar there. So that's what I wanted to talk about in Vedic astrology, and I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it was useful, and do subscribe if you think it was useful, and I will see you in one of my other videos. And this one is pretty close to my Venus. My Venus is in Scorpio and this one's really close to it. So I just thought I'd share that. Now I will see you next time. Have a great day. Bye.